My arch-nemesis incessantly mocks me, exclaiming, "A beta dares to compete with me?" Yet, in a twist of fate, during his vulnerable phase, I restrained his wrists, taunting him, "Oh, how pitiable, dear Alpha. How could one find themselves beneath a beta, pleading for more?" 1. From the moment I was born as a beta, I was practically abandoned by my family. My father sought out countless omegas, fathering numerous children. Ultimately, he fulfilled his desire by siring an S-rank alpha. Regrettably, that individual, despite wielding pheromones with an air of intimidation, was evidently outmatched intellectually by me. At the shareholders' meeting, he lost to me by a mere 3 votes, and I ascended to become the latest authoritative voice of the Jiang family. Henceforth, pheromones and secondary sexual characteristics became my Achilles heel. I harbor a profound disdain for those who elevate themselves above others merely due to the differentiation of secondary sexual traits. Among them, the most repugnant is Li Meng, my adversary in the business realm, a naturally gifted S-rank alpha. He once usurped a parcel of land from me, mocking me with a laugh. A beta daring to contend with me? How utterly deluded. He is youthful, formidable, and audacious, with a pair of wolf-like eyes ignited by an unquenchable fire. I retorted presidently, "There is plenty of time ahead." 2. My patience is rather limited, thus that time would not be extensive. I received news of his onset of sensitivity. As I swiped my card to enter, I found him pressing an omega against the bed, his canines poised to bite. A single action from him would grant him fleeting relief. However, I swiftly covered his mouth with my hand, ensnaring him in my embrace. The omega, intoxicated by pheromones, opened his eyes in confusion, gazing at us. "Apologies, did I startle you? You have 1 minute to dress and secure the door for us." Startled, he scrambled off the bed to don his clothing. Li Meng, in my grasp, was disoriented and weak. Ordinarily, I would find it challenging to assert dominance over him. Yet, I couldn't help but entertain that notion. A pitiable creature governed by pheromones. "Zhonglan, you bastard," I chuckled, tossing him from the bed to the floor, relishing his discomfort as he writhed. Sweat trickled down his brow, his furrowed brow tightening with each passing moment. After enjoying a cigarette's duration, I approached him, my heel pinning his wrist, rendering him immobile beneath my foot. "Presidently, do you have anything to say to me?" He gasped for air, his bathrobe slipping away, revealing his bare skin beneath. "Find me an omega, quickly." I crouched down, parting his damp hair. "I believe this is not the solution." He gritted his teeth, his eyes aflame with fury and resentment. "I apologize. Truth be told, I merely wished to witness his disheveled state." However, observing his flushed visage, tortured by desire, brought forth an unexpected reaction within me. I retrieved my phone to call my assistant. "Bring me a box of condoms." Glancing at Li Meng's furious face, I added, "The kind with 20 in a pack." 3. I have always exercised considerable restraint in matters of intimacy. To me, it is merely a seasoning of life. Yet, it was evident that Li Meng in his sensitive state held a different perspective. Initially, he resisted with fury, still shouting, "Zhonglan, I will make you pay," as I pinned him down. He bit my wrist until it bled, and I, with a smile, took a bite near his gland, startling him into a tremor. "Very well, I shall await that. Before that, do not perish on my bed." Eventually, he clung to me, pleading, "I want more, I want more." I grasped his ankle, finding his dazed expression somewhat displeasing. Pinching his cheek, I demanded, "Recognize who I am." He squinted. "Who are you?" His appearance, akin to a primitive beast, unsettled me. I preferred the usual strong and astute Li Meng, for that brought the joy of a worthy opponent. I raised my hand and slapped him. "Look closely."
Yang Lang.
Alas, that swollen mouth no longer possessed the strength to insult me. 4. Upon regaining consciousness, we engaged in a fierce altercation. He was infuriated, completely oblivious to the disadvantage he now faced. After being subdued for 4 days, his foundation was remarkably unstable. He was easily pressed down once more, gritting his teeth and speaking ominously. "Zhonglan, you have truly crossed the line." I blinked nonchalantly. "What can you possibly do to me?" The glands beneath my skin warmed slightly. I leaned in as if to bite, startling Li Meng into a scream. "Don't move! Get away!" In the end, I merely placed a gentle kiss in that vicinity, mocking his nervousness. How pitiable. After saying that, I released him and got off the bed, but he remained prostrate, a hint of embarrassment coloring his features. I chuckled knowingly, feeling a reaction. Are we? Do you require my service? He turned his head away. Get lost. I reached out to ruffle his hair, my gesture seeming rather affectionate. Li Meng, do not provoke me again. This is my final piece of advice to you. 5. Upon returning home, I found Bai Wen lost in thought on the sofa. Upon noticing my entrance, his expression shifted to one of urgency. Where have you been these past few days? A subtle frown creased my brow, and he immediately recognized his faux pas. Apologies. He approached and took my discarded coat, pausing momentarily. It dawned on me that he was an Omega, capable of detecting the scent of pheromones. Intrigued, I inquired, what does it smell like? After all, I could not discern it. He inhaled deeply, a potent aroma, likely brandy. After speaking, he lowered his gaze, a look of melancholy crossing his face. He hesitated, suppressing his words, but ultimately could not restrain himself. So you Haven T returned home these days because you were with him? I found Bai Wen's question rather disconcerting. After all, I kept him around for so long precisely because he was obedient and understanding. I am not one to indulge in promiscuity, nor do I share the libertine tendencies of my peers. My desires are not fervent. Thus, having Bai Wen alone suffices. However, his reaction today left me unsatisfied. I stood there, contemplating whether it was time to seek someone new. He approached, gently embracing me. His voice tinged with sorrow, an overwhelming sense of unease emanating from our closeness as he spoke. I have been by your side for 3 years. Everyone says you are cold and incapable of loving anyone. But I know you are actually quite gentle and have always treated me well. Do you have even a slight affection for me? By the end, his voice trembled. I understood the source of his anxiety. Ultimately, I merely stroked his hair, tenderly, in a comforting manner. I hope that is the last time you ask such a thing. Keeping a dog by my side for 3 years could foster some attachment. How much more so for a human? I have shown Bai Wen an unusual degree of leniency. He trembled, revealing a bitter smile, and I felt warm tears cascade down. He appeared so pitiful, evoking a sense of compassion within me. I am sorry. 6. The fleeting thought of severing ties with Bai Wen arose not only because he overstepped boundaries, but also because I felt it was time for a change of taste. Previously, I had a penchant for the gentle and obedient type, which did not ignite a significant desire within me. I only attended to basic needs. Yet now, I found myself contemplating the allure of the untamed and wild. The butler replaced my usual drink with brandy. I took a sip, the fiery sensation coursing down my throat to my stomach. Unbidden, thoughts of Li Meng's eyes flashed in my mind, ablaze with fury yet sparkling with intensity. Felt rather intriguing. When I next encountered Li Meng, he confronted me in a public setting with a fierce assault. I stood my ground, taking a punch from him before he was dragged away by his friends. Those like us have always regarded demeanor as attire. Even when harboring thoughts of inflicting 1,000 cuts upon one another, we maintain an unyielding facade of gentlemanliness. He truly has cast aside all restraint, bearing himself to the world. Luo advised him, calm down, my friend. This is utterly humiliating. Others echoed his sentiments. Indeed, it's merely a business matter. Cool your jets. Li Meng's eyes widened. Do you not realize The words that followed were too shameful for him to utter, and he forced himself to swallow them down, nearly tripping over his tongue. On that flamboyant face, the concealed fury and grievance were palpable. Are you still angry about what happened that day? I apologize, it was unintentional. Shut your mouth. If you truly feel uncomfortable, then His words were abruptly silenced as he yanked my collar and dragged me to the underground parking lot. With a grave expression, he warned, should you disclose anything about that day, I will take your life. I adjusted my disheveled attire and leaned lazily against the car door. What's the matter? Were you not enjoying it? Afraid of being found out? He scoffed. Enjoying? What nonsense. I'd much rather switch to another Omega. That would be far more pleasurable. A beta like you, under normal circumstances, I wouldn't spare a glance. His words ignited a fire within me, be it anger or desire. The car door swung open, and I seized him, tossing him inside. Seems you've forgotten how to beg for more. Allow me to refresh your memory. Inside the confined space of the car, there was little room for movement. The moment my lips met his actions faltered. I bit his lip, my tongue dancing with his. He attempted to resist, but as I grasped him, his body stiffened. Men are merely creatures of desire, without exception. The SUV swayed, his sweat dripping onto the leather seat as he waved a hand at me. Zhanglan, you wretched mutt. Unable to contain myself, I kissed that mouth which so often spewed venomous words. Though the words were unkind, the kiss was exquisite. I know your insults are merely a guise for your yearning. As the window rolled down, a slender hand extended outside to flick away ash from a cigarette. Li Meng appeared languid and lazy as he said, Zhanglan, soon you will be kneeling at my feet, calling me daddy. Don't get too cocky. I replied, I eagerly anticipate that day. Upon returning home, Baiwen offered me a glass of effervescent water. After drinking, I fell into a deep slumber. Recently, he had been acting somewhat out of character, avoiding my gaze with an air of anxiety. I reached out to pat his head, startling him. I fell silent, observing him quietly until he finally pursed his lips and grasped my wrist. I'm 26 this year, and I truly desire a place to call home. He gazed at me earnestly, akin to a puppy wagging its tail in plea. I remained silent, withdrawing my arm from his grasp. His expression fell, and he let out a barely audible sigh. I'm sorry. I overstepped. Baiwen took the initiative to suggest a breakup, which I found rather convenient and worry-free. Yet, I still had my assistant provide him with ample compensation. Just when I thought Baiwen would never reappear in my life, Li Meng paraded him around. I watched as Baiwen linked arms with him and entered a car, receiving a call from Li Meng shortly thereafter. His voice was elegant and crisp. How does it feel to be cuckolded by your little lover, Zhang Zong? I scoffed. I've slept with both. Your claim of me being cuckolded leaves me momentarily unsure if you're referring to yourself or him. He detected the barbs in my words. What's the matter? Are you that angry? Does Zhang Zong have a fondness for this Omega? He pales in comparison to you. The taste of Li Zong is far more intoxicating. You're sick. After cursing me, he abruptly hung up. I understood that his revenge would not simply involve stealing a bed partner. In the aftermath, my company faced scrutiny over financial discrepancies, resulting in a swift 3-drop in stock prices. It dawned on me, no wonder I had slept so soundly after drinking Baiwen's water. Baiwen could decipher the 16-digit computer password. It appeared he was rather meticulous. Quite impressive. My father stormed into the conference room and struck me hard across the face in front of the company's executives. Is this how you manage the company I entrusted to you? What use are you to me? I was acutely aware of his disdain. My rise to power had rendered his youthful obsession with producing an S-class Alpha into a mere farce. He demanded another shareholders' meeting. I was deemed unfit for the position of president of Zhang Corporation. During that period, I was overwhelmed, entangled in trivial matters, and had to contend with ongoing financial audits. The winds among the executives were decidedly unfavorable towards me. A new project bid had been in the works, and I had hoped to reconnect with Li Meng, but that was now out of the question. His call came through, taunting me cheerfully. How does it feel, Zhanglan, to be backstabbed by your little lover? Little lover? Are you referring to yourself or him? He chuckled. At this point, you can only take solace in words. Once Zhang Man takes the helm, what will become of you? The beta so scorned within the Zhang family? His tone dripped with schadenfreude. I idly toyed with the lighter in my hand, the flame singeing my fingertips. The heat and sting mirrored my feelings towards Li Meng. Honestly, I'm under considerable pressure. Deservedly so. Who told you to provoke me? I wish to vent this pressure. Li Meng remained silent. So, shall we? You're insane. It seemed our conversations inevitably concluded with those 2 words. I tossed the abruptly disconnected phone aside and gazed out at the multitude of lights beyond the floor-to-ceiling window. Suddenly, I felt a wave of weariness wash over me. In my life, I seldom experienced moments of warmth. Since I became aware, I only remembered the need to surpass every Alpha and Omega. I sought to prove my father wrong. His disdain for me, a beta born of my mother, had led him to brazenly father various illegitimate children with different women. My mother eventually succumbed to depression. In my world, there was neither love nor familial affection, elements I had long ceased to believe in. Occasionally, I pondered, even if I proved I was not inferior to anyone, what remnants would remain in my barren world. A specialized team organized the accounts, laying bare the portion subject to legal tax avoidance for public scrutiny. The more concealed something is, the more it unsettles investors. By presenting it openly, only a few tax evasion issues would be uncovered, which could easily be rectified. It was a manageable sum, one I could cover. Public sentiment was temporarily quelled, and I began to release information on the company's recent project progress. whether true or false. The plummeting stock prices began to stabilize, and I started to feel a sense of relief. With the pressing matters at hand resolved, I had the opportunity to address other issues. When I found Baiwen, his expression was one of surprise. "Get in the car." He stepped back in fear, gripping his phone tightly. "I consent to you calling Li Meng. Now, get in the car and don't make me repeat myself." He entered the vehicle and, in my presence, dialed Li Meng. His tone was more dependent and soft than usual. "Zhang Zong has come to see me." "Oh, let him come," Li Meng replied casually. "Is Zhanglan listening?" Baiwen quickly cast a glance at me. "Yes." Li Meng chuckled. "Then I leave it to you to handle. Zhang Zong never disappoints in managing affairs." With that, he promptly hung up the phone. Baiwen's complexion drained entirely in an instant, as though he could not fathom why Li Meng had suddenly turned against him. I kindly reminded him, "It is because you have become devoid of value." It seems that during these years he spent by my side, I had indeed shielded him well enough that he remained oblivious to the treachery of human nature. Li Meng, after all, is no paragon of virtue. Like myself, he is wicked to the core. What did he offer you that compelled you to betray me? Baiwen's lips trembled, still engulfed in profound shock and despair. A mark. The emblem of an alpha's love and loyalty. Something I could never provide. I reached out and tugged at his collar, revealing the bite mark that had already scabbed over. A temporary one? He nodded, but he promised that eventually he would grant me a permanent mark. A permanent mark, an instinctual bond that would entwine two souls, igniting affection and love. Perhaps this was the only means to bestow an Omega with the security they yearned for most. I felt inexplicably irked, yet I could not discern whether it was directed at him or Li Meng. I smiled and pinched Baiwen's cheek. "You have been with me for so long. I shall overlook the debts." He raised his gaze to meet mine, appearing so pitiful that the once appealing visage now stirred a sense of distaste within me. "Yet, I am not particularly fond of this mark." He immediately covered the back of his neck with his hand. "It will fade in due time." "No, that is far too slow. Go wash it off." "I will instruct the doctor not to administer anesthesia. It may hurt a bit, but you can endure it, can't you?" I waited for him outside Li Meng's door for a while, watching him stumble from the car, waving farewell to someone, then turning back. The haze of intoxication vanished, replaced by eyes that blazed like a fire in the night. Upon noticing me, he licked his lips with a crimson tongue, wild and alluring. "It seems that President Zhang's mess has been tidied up. Thanks to you, I've been quite busy." I grasped his hand, placing my fingerprint on the door. "So now, I have come to pay a visit to the architect of my woes." I had yet to devise a plan for handling Li Meng, this domineering and troublesome alpha. It appeared nearly impossible to truly subjugate him. The only realm where I could exert dominance was in bed. Thus, regardless of how he called out, I would not cease. The scent of decadence permeated the bedroom, his eyelashes dampened by physiological tears. "Enough," I said, "enough. Get off me. Have you had your fill?" He clutched the bed sheets, trembling as he uttered a breathy yes. "I recall you once claimed that one day I would kneel before you, calling you daddy." Li Meng, who is kneeling now? I had never anticipated that at the age of 26, I would suddenly become so infatuated with desire. Perhaps it was Li Meng who stirred the few emotions within me. Every man, in his youth, wishes to conquer a wild steed, and Li Meng is undoubtedly the most untamed of them all. Repugnant, intimidating, yet maddeningly captivating. He kicked me lightly. "I'm hungry. Make me something to eat." "Me?" He squinted. "Who else would it be?" I resignedly got up, and after an hour of my culinary endeavors, Li Meng unexpectedly appeared behind me as I lay on the bed. "You took this long to make a tomato and egg stir-fry?" I instinctively shifted to shield the contents of my pan. However, he swiftly pulled me aside, ready to take matters into his own hands. Upon seeing what was in my pan, he exclaimed, "Damn, are you attempting to murder your husband?" The moment his words fell, we both froze. Since our first encounter, the atmosphere between us, devoid of hostility, had become saturated with an unspoken tension, a lingering ambiguity that neither dared to shatter. Some relationships are best left in a tacit understanding. Any further progression would lead to decay. I momentarily faltered, averting my gaze, while he awkwardly cleared his throat and pushed me aside. "Get out of the way." In the end, we both sat down with bowls of rice, savoring a rather delectable tomato and egg stir-fry. He bit down on his chopsticks and said, "I never imagined there would be something you couldn't manage. Of course, no one is perfect." He scrutinized me, his gaze brazenly tracing my contours. Jianglan, at 18 you began your entrepreneurial journey, creating a plugin that swept the market, prompting the Jiang family to approach you for acquisition, securing you 1% of Jiang's shares. And here you are today. Quite impressive. You have earned the right to be my competitor. For someone as arrogant as Li Meng, the highest form of recognition he could bestow upon another is merely, "You are qualified to be my rival." I lifted my gaze, feeling that Li Meng now resembled an unquenchable flame, capable of igniting the most barren of lives. He smirked, casually regarding me, an undercurrent of mutual appreciation stirring between us, akin to two opponents recognizing each other's prowess. Fate often intertwines adversaries. I encountered Li Meng at the year's largest project bidding meeting. He sat casually, fiddling with the ring on his finger. I settled beside him, prompting him to glance my way. "Dressed rather flamboyantly, aren't we?" I examined my rather formal three-piece suit. "Are you certain that word applies to me?" he exclaimed. "Apologies, but seeing you now, I can only envision you without any clothes." "I know what you're thinking. Let's relive that tonight," he scoffed. "If you let me have you last time, I will indulge you again. Have you not learned your lesson from the other night?" A flicker of embarrassment crossed his face before he quickly regained his poise. To any observer, he would appear the epitome of aloofness and authority, the consummate figure of a high-ranking individual. Yet beneath that facade, his red-soled black shoes playfully trod upon my foot. I felt a surge of amusement. On the way back to the office, a thought crossed my mind. What do you think it feels like to be in love? What? The assistant in front turned around, surprised. Nothing. I snapped back to reality, finding the notion absurd. Love? That was a sentiment neither Li Meng nor I would ever experience. It must have been an illusion born from conflicting emotions, an overwhelming desire for conquest, an insatiable curiosity, a subtle understanding, and the most primal of lust. The complexity of those feelings left my mind unusually muddled. After a period of intense preparation for the bidding, heavy snow began to fall in the capital. I remembered him smiling at me before leaving, saying, "I will definitely win. Care to wager?" That smile, truly triumphant, melted even the ice and snow between his brows. "What shall we wager? If I win, you allow me to have you." This had become his obsession. He openly acknowledged that maintaining this relationship with me was pleasurable, and he could never accept anyone else in his bed. Secondly, he was determined to have me at least once. I took a sip from the half-finished cup of coffee he had left behind. "I'm not betting." "Coward," he scoffed, casually wrapping a scarf around himself. Just as I was about to remind him that it was my scarf, I saw his figure vanish through the door. The words I had left unspoken lodged in my throat. Once he departed, the emptiness of the room turned a few degrees colder. I gazed at the dining table still set for two, pondering that perhaps a gust of cold wind had swept in through the doorway. As he had predicted, he indeed won the bid. He called me, his voice brimming with mirth. "Apologies, President Jiang. It seems you wasted your efforts." I could almost conjure his expression from the tone of his voice. Teasing, flamboyant, and somewhat cheeky. The sting of losing the significant project lessened considerably as I replied, "President Li, I shall remember your apology." I donned my coat and made my way to Li Meng's company. Though we had no business dealings, a visit to extend my congratulations should not be deemed intrusive. Should it? "My apologies. Does it hurt?" "I'm sorry. I still wish to continue." "I apologize. I just forgot to wear it." Li Meng raised his hand and lightly punched me, exerting no real force, as a commotion echoed from outside the door. I reached out to touch his pheromone gland. "Control your pheromones. Do you wish for your employees to flee in unison?" It was then he registered my words, furrowing his brow. "The pheromones of an S-class alpha hold no sway over me, but for the ordinary A's and O's, their potency is formidable." After a brief pause, he suddenly broke into laughter. "Now I understand why you are in such a fluster. You have indeed lost both the lady and the battle at my hands." I lit a cigarette, curiosity piqued as I inquired, "Lady? Who might that be?" He cast me a sidelong glance, seemingly mocking my poor memory. "By one, have you forgotten? Your little darling whom you raised for 3 years." A fleeting, peculiar emotion crossed my mind, but before I could grasp it, it vanished. I leaned closer, offering the cigarette to his lips. "In that case, you resemble the lady more." His action of exhaling smoke faltered, and the flush on his face was uncertain, whether it was a remnant of the moment or something else entirely. He turned his head, cursing me. "Idiot. I earnestly reflected on the reasons behind our failure in the tendering process. After all, it was poised to be the largest project in the capital next year. Without a doubt, the company had prepared extensively for this. I felt that failure was unwarranted. Upon investigation, I discovered the cause of our downfall. The base bid had been leaked, and Li Meng was privy to the minimum price beforehand, allowing him to secure the contract. If I were to expose this matter, the tender would be rendered null and void, necessitating a new round of bidding. Such dishonorable tactics to obtain the base price would undoubtedly spark a scandal of monumental proportions. Li Meng would be barred from participating in the new round of bidding. He was my most formidable rival. Without him in the running, my victory would be assured. As I pondered this, I realized Li Meng was indeed intent on gaining the upper hand, employing such underhanded strategies. I wondered what means he had used to bribe someone into leaking the bid. Was it money? Or perhaps, like last time, his rare and unmatched mark? When his call came through, I glanced down at my vibrating phone but refrained from answering. I sensed a peculiar discomfort within myself. Had this been earlier, I would have hastily disseminated the news. It would undoubtedly be a severe blow to Li Meng, and was it not my intention to trample this man underfoot? Yet, I recalled the smile he wore as he left that day, brimming with confidence and audacity. I had never witnessed his expression of defeat, and I found that I perhaps did not wish to see it. His phone continued to ring insistently, and finally, I reached for it and answered. His voice, tinged with irritation, came through. Are you deaf? No, what is it? I want to eat hot pot. Have your aunt prepare some, I'll come over tonight. I ran my fingers through my hair, feeling a whirlwind in my mind, deciding it best to avoid meeting him. I have plans tonight. I'll be home late. Let's have it another day. What is it to you? Whether I go home or not is none of your concern. Didn't you want to eat hot pot with me? No, I just want to eat at your place. I'm afraid it'll smell at mine. Whether you're there or not is irrelevant. How unnecessary my sympathy for him was. When I returned home, he was perspiring heavily, half of the items submerged in the spicy broth of the hot pot. As I entered, he was about to speak but suddenly coughed, choking. I handed him a glass of water. Can't you eat spicy without using the clear broth? The spicy soup is robust enough. Would you care for a bite? I shook my head, settling down to watch him eat, observing the lively atmosphere around us, my thoughts swirling chaotically, unable to find clarity. After he showered, fresh and clean, he climbed into bed without a word, tossing aside the towel at his waist. Springtime radiance burst forth. He smiled and climbed onto the bed, his head inching toward me, but I seized his face firmly. Don't touch me. He frowned. What's the matter? Do you think I came here to sleep without clothes? If you're dissatisfied, you may leave. If he were to depart, then my flicker of compassion would indeed be rendered unnecessary. After spending time together, regardless of how it began, both would inevitably shift. One gradually forgets the initial intentions. I needed some gesture from him to awaken me, to remind me that this sense of dependence I felt was merely an illusion, and I must not forget that between us, there existed nothing but sexual tension and rivalry. He was evidently displeased with my words, cursing me once more before nimbly getting off the bed and leaving the bedroom. I closed my eyes, feeling an unfamiliar disdain for the emptiness of the room. The bedroom door was pushed open again. I jolted awake, my eyes widening at the sight of Li Meng entering with a box of ice cream. A sensation surged through me, electrifying from fingertip to hair, indescribably sweet and tinged with relief from some hidden corner of my heart. He climbed onto the bed with the ice cream and asked, "Want a bite?" I snatched the ice cream from his hand and threw it onto the carpet, uncharacteristically angry. At myself, at him. Angry that his actions could sway me. Angry that he had unwittingly influenced me over something as trivial as a box of ice cream. What the hell? This was perhaps the most emotionally charged I had ever been in front of him. What's wrong? Did the ice cream offend you? I pulled him beneath me. Let me show you something good. To my surprise, a fleeting look of embarrassment crossed his face. What nonsense are you spouting? I've seen it countless times. Not that. Oh, then what is it? I opened my phone and handed it to him. He read quickly, then looked up at me, a flicker of panic in his eyes. What do you plan to do? I tossed aside my phone, gazing at the face beneath me, strikingly beautiful. My fingertips brushed his nose and lips with an unexpected tenderness. This was a stark contrast to the primal urges that had once driven me to dominate him, purely for the sake of release and punishment. I recall you saying that one day, you would have me kneel and call you. Daddy. He suddenly interjected, his canine teeth grazing my finger. My eyes widened, my heartbeat quickening uncontrollably. You! Daddy. I never imagined such words would escape Li Meng's lips. It was undoubtedly the most potent aphrodisiac in existence. An irresistible temptation. My throat tightened, and I kissed that mouth, the very one that would hurl insults at me and whisper beguiling words. That night, I engaged in my first ill-fated transaction of life. Li Meng lay beneath me, and though it seemed I held dominion over him, in truth, in this contest, whether in the realm of commerce or romance, it appeared I was the true loser. My relationship with Li Meng entered a rather peculiar phase. Perhaps it was the unspoken understanding between us, as everything felt remarkably natural, as if two individuals were meant to be this way. Sharing a bed, going out together, occasionally feigning a casual relationship in social settings, only to steal passionate kisses in secluded corners. Even I failed to notice how remarkably content I had been lately. When I first caught a whiff of a subordinate's perfume, I surprisingly asked, "Is there something going on today?" "You're wearing perfume." He immediately took a step back, apologizing, "I'm sorry, General Jiang. Today, I'm planning to confess to someone I like." I blinked, puzzled. "Confess?" He shyly scratched his head. "Yes, we've been ambiguous for quite a while, and I think it's time to make it clear. We shouldn't just start without understanding each other. It turns out that beginnings require confessions." "What is the usual process?" "Well, typically we have a meal together and exchange flowers and gifts." "Ah, flowers, how foolish and juvenile. Nevertheless, the Juliet roses flown in from France are quite exquisite. I've had them scattered throughout my home." As I lit the candlesticks on the dining table, an awkward sensation washed over me, prompting me to hastily instruct someone to remove them. When Li Meng returned home, he paused for a moment before, as per usual, changing his shoes and approaching the dining table. He smiled at me, and I felt a strange sense of discomfort. It seemed inappropriate for me to utter sentiments of affection, such as love or fondness, especially between Li Meng and myself. Let's eat." He twirled a strand of pasta around his fork, remarking, "I thought I had stumbled into a wedding." I maintained a facade of calm, but Li Meng observed, "Your ears are turning red." Instinctively, I touched my ears and realized he was looking at me with a playful glint in his eyes. "You're insane," was the retort that finally escaped my lips. "Do you know why I like you?" He suddenly inquired, leaving me astounded as I gazed at him. My pulse quickened, and I gripped my knife and fork tightly. I am indeed a rather self-assured individual. Before you, I was surrounded by numerous obedient omegas. They were more compliant, more understanding, and more obedient than you. Most importantly, whenever I desired, they would submissively allow me to. I gestured for him to stop, as the atmosphere was quite pleasant, and his premature confession had left me in a euphoric state. I did not wish to hear him continue and feared he might not finish his meal. He nodded in understanding, skillfully shifting the conversation. "However, I am acutely aware that they do not deserve to stand beside me. Perhaps a beautiful pet may uplift one's spirits, but the one who stands beside me must be my equal. I have long confessed my feelings to you. On the day I acknowledged that you were worthy to be my rival, I suppressed the overwhelming shiver coursing through me. The distant roar in my ears felt unreal, and the world around me faded, leaving only a sky full of roses to compliment Li Meng. I circled the table, grasped his collar, and kissed him. I had thought I would never utter those words, the very words I had never believed in throughout my life. I despised his arrogance, I loathed his unscrupulous tactics, and I abhorred his flaws, which were as numerous as the stars. Yet, when the sun rises, the stars fade into obscurity. The blazing sun in his eyes brought forth an everlasting daylight. "Li Meng, it seems that I have fallen in love with you." During the fervent phase of our romance, he entered his second sensitive period. I remained by his side, allowing him to bite into me mercilessly, leaving behind a tapestry of bloodied marks. I referred to these as the badges of love. He touched one of the scabs on my body and asked, "Does it hurt?" "Not really. After all, he bore his own share of injuries." He sighed and playfully taunted me, "Omegas are truly preferable. One bite, and it's all bliss." I scoffed. "Haven't you had enough pleasure these past few days?" He waved his hand dismissively. "That's different. If I were to break up with you, I'd find another omega." I latched onto the key phrase, "Break up with me? What else? Am I to talk to you for a lifetime? And what if I let you?" His eyes brightened instantly, and the languidness of his body transformed into vigor. "Then I'd love you for a lifetime, my darling." I chuckled, pushing his hand away, Hold on. Be a bit patient. I need to prepare myself psychologically. All right? How long will you make me wait? He excitedly embraced me and showered me with fervent kisses. I'll wait as long as it takes. Have you heard the tale of the carrot and the donkey? Dangle a carrot in front of the donkey, and it will tirelessly toil away. The end. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to our next story.